I believe we have a panel here of thinkers, dreamers, doers and achievers. And I think we're going to be very inspired by what they have to say. They come from a wide range of experiences and a wide range of backgrounds. So, a Chord Gael, tonight we're here to imagine a better future. And tomorrow we must make it happen.
We have to imagine, can we put together a society which respects every single man, woman and child? Doesn't care whether you've got disabilities, you're a citizen. Doesn't care about your gender, your sexual orientation, you're a citizen. Doesn't care if you're a child with learning difficulties, you're a citizen. And society has to be shaped around to meet your needs and to be egalitarian and inclusive and fair based upon equality. So Sinead, I'm 100% certain that we can bring this about. I don't think we should let our heads go down for one moment. Now, to use, with respect to anybody from Donegal, a football metaphor, right? We won't do it playing Donegal football. Right? We have to be out there on their side of the field, putting it up to them and demanding what is ours by right. The right to, as Padraig Pearse said, the pursuit of human happiness. That's what it's about, that you would have enough space in your life to be happy. That's what it's about, that we can create an Ireland in which the maximum amount of people can be relieved of all the stresses and pressures and all that goes with it. And all of these dreadful plights that are inflicted upon people, from suicide through all of the mental and other difficulties, as well as the real economic distress that bows down people, that we can put an end to all of that. I think we can do it. Now, I don't think this platform can do it. I don't think Sinn Féin can do it. I think we, as a people, can do it. We're back with Connolly. The reconquest of Ireland by the people of Ireland. Sinead, let the debate go on. Have a good evening and keep it going after tonight. Go to meet Margaret.
But the fact remains that the austerity solution which the Troika and unfortunately our own political establishment has advocated and implemented is threatening to create a downward spiral of spending cuts, declining economic activity, falling government revenues, and therefore excuses for further cuts. In other forums, I have advocated the adoption of the following 5-point program. 1, default on the debt. 2, leave the euro. 3, create a good public bank or 2. 4, institute a job guarantee. And 5, nationalize energy resources and pursue energy security. In good times, the reorientation of the northern and southern economies towards one another has proceeded slowly and fitfully. A full suite of supporting infrastructure and institutions has been missing due to decades of artificial, at least from a geographic point of view, separation. A complicated set of institutional arrangements seldom emerges spontaneously in normal times. The grooves in the old road are too deep to allow easy turning onto new roads. But paradoxically, when the wheels come off the economy, it becomes possible to set out in new directions. Thank you.
Ní dóile go bhfuil muid an am an sin amach céile dhéanam gan sinna bheith hain. Agus léige minn tabar lán, caithe sé takeachtar. Caithar takeacht a bheith an áiríre. Caithar takeacht aontaithe bheith an. Agus caithar takeacht gon cheiste bheith an. Má bhíonn sé sin fad dain. Má tá cínteachta, má tá áiríireachta, agus má tá an rud gan cheist, agus má tá teoireach i sileire, agus mátá sein cá bhfuil muidir gail. Mar a dtíir an sean dran fada is rúne atá. Gur mí amach.
In an Irish context, where a coherent and distinctively Irish food culture is yet at an evolving stage, Indigenous farmers and fishers, many of whom are not engaged currently in local food and so-called farmers' markets, are perhaps in the unique position of having the capacity to contribute an authenticity to Irish food culture that is defined by the close and long-standing relationships they have with the Irish seascape and landscape, and reflecting on Bord Bia's ongoing work in the development of an umbrella brand for Irish food, to create a truly authentic, inimitable and thus internationally competitive food brand. We cannot rely on imported traditions, but we must instead recognise and confidently appraise the intrinsic, the typical, the conventional attributes of Ireland's landscape and seascape, which, although may seem very ordinary to us, are nonetheless very remarkable, and particularly so from an Irish or an international viewpoint. A sense of pride in what is conventional to Ireland is required for this, an example of which elsewhere is the national pride associated with the terroir-oriented system of production in France, a tradition and source of value added that originated from indigenous French farmers. For the success of an authentic Irish food culture and brand, the remarkable food story of the indigenous Irish farmer and fisher is just as crucial a resource as the physical land and marine resources themselves. And in this sense, the development approach that is inevitably required for the building of such an authentic food culture is one which facilitates small-scale fishers and farmers to take ownership of a civil movement that, in the words of the Irish sociologist Hilary Tovey, restates rights and possibilities of rural inhabitants to generate a livelihood for themselves from a sustainable use of the natural, cultural and social resources specific to their own rural locale. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Pink Note Tool wrote an article about this in the Irish Times, middle of August. He said something like, let's make Norway joint owner of oil and gas. And Pat Rabbit answered him a couple of days later. And I can't really understand the answer he gives, because he's giving away your resources. I don't understand this.
The other thing he said was, we put it to him about your idea of having a state company to do the exploration. He said, no, you could never do that. Too expensive. You wouldn't have the expertise. You wouldn't have the money. It's not viable.
Norway in the late 60s were one of the poorest countries in Europe. We could afford that, and we made Statoil as a success for the country. The Norwegians are not smarter than others, but we've been very lucky with some of our politicians at the, 40 years ago. So we have been, normally natural resources, it should benefit the people of the country, but in many countries it's the opposite. You end up with corruption, you end up with multinational companies bribing a little group of people. But we've been very lucky with our politicians regarding this. What I would do is put together a group, maybe 10, 15, 20 men and women, geologists, lawyers, economists, and I will send them over to Norway for 2 months and learn how we succeeded. Listen, we have 400 billion euro in world's largest pension fund. And of course, 2 months ago, we've had another 200 million to add to that. Huh? I met a lot of trade unions also from SIPTU, and they made a report. And I think that report gives you a lot of good answers. What I can't understand is why the trade union have good answers. And the member of a trade union who's now a minister doesn't follow these advices.
This is the real map of Ireland, on Fir Lair Scoil. 10 times the size of the island, 660,000 square kilometres, 20% of EU waters. We have 2% of the EU fish catch. Madness. The same approach from the civil servants about our oil and gas resources. Up to maybe 600-700 billion worth by conservative estimates has been what they figure we have here. Under current legislation, the oil companies own it. This man here has shown us an example of how it's done. This is a huge thing that could transform this country in every respect. So start thinking the real map of Ireland is the sea around it. For years we just thought we were an agricultural country. We have a huge area. It's rightfully belonged to us. Okay?
It is defined by the experience of being a minority. Now, how we think and act and behave towards minorities measures the health, the political health of a country. It also, I think, measures the political dynamism of any party. And indeed, when a political canvasser appears on my doorstep, my first question is always to choose some unpopular minority, and there are plenty to choose from, and to ask whoever is canvassing what they think of that minority, and if they go silent, the door closes. I think now, indeed I believe, that republicanism and Protestantism have everything to give each other, and indeed are natural allies. Dialogue between Protestants and Republicans helps to shift religious identity away from that paralyzing sectarian ethnic marker that it has become, that it was in the past. And it transforms this relationship into something that is mutually and ethically dynamic. Protestantism and republicanism should stay in close dialogue, challenge and question each other.
I think when you're pursuing your means of a new Ireland, not to forget the importance of sport in doing so. And I take you back a few years up at home when things weren't good, that sport was one of the first things to unite people when Barry McGuigan was winning a world title. Tomorrow morning, whenever Tommy Bowe is driving over the line, people will not question, is he an Ulster, is he North, or where's he? He's an Irishman. And that's important to remember. The boxing teams that represent the country, they're Irish. Unfortunately, we can't say the same about soccer. So we have still a bit of ground to work on and catch up, but sport is very important, and sport is very important in uniting people on this island. So an answer to the question, was 30 years of struggle worth it? And through now, there's an air of optimism, renewed self-confidence. People are feeling good about themselves. No matter what we go to do, when we go down south, for years we came down south, came up the road and nothing. As I say, it's a different place to be living in. So the 30 years of struggle, where would we be if it wasn't for the great effort made by so many of our leaders and so many people? Where would we be? I was listening to the radio a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember, it was a Dublin-based station, and they talked about the latest statistical survey is out, and we now have 4.7 million people in the country. I was about to ring in and say, you've just left out nearly a couple of million there.